Sean is now navigating quite comfortably around his Excel workbook. But when we have a really massive workbook like this, it still does present a lot of challenges. And one thing that can help us are some of our view options. We'll start by looking at the bottom of the screen on our status bar. We have a small tool called a zoom slider, and this allows us to quickly zoom in by clicking on the plus, zoom out by clicking on the minus, or simply drag the zoom slider to get to exactly where we need it. To the left of the zoom slider are three view options. We are working in normal view, but to the right of that you will also see the page layout view. This gives us a good indication of how the Excel workbook sits on the page and is useful when we come to print. To the right of that is the page break view, and this is very good for getting an overview of a large worksheet. For the most part though, we will work in normal view, so I'm going to click back on that. Coming up to our ribbon now, I'm going to click on the View tab. You will notice a lot of the tools we've just looked at, like the page breaks views and the zoom tools, are also available on the ribbon tab. If I needed to quickly zoom in, for example, to 100%, I can just click on the 100%. If you find that tool really useful, don't forget you can always add it to your quick access toolbar. So I'm going to right click and add quick access toolbar. There are also several checkboxes which will allow you to turn off and on some view options. For example, if I'd like to hide my grid lines, I can untick grid lines and they're gone. Usually it's easier to work with them all. One tool which can be quite useful is the split. This allows us to split our screen so we can view different sections simultaneously. I'm going to click near the middle of my screen and click split. And where these grey lines have appeared, my screen has actually been split into 4 sections. I find this a bit difficult to work with, so I'm going to double click on the middle split to remove it. I now just have a top and a bottom. And if I wanted to see some data at the top and compare it to data near the bottom, I can come to my lower scroll bar and scroll down till I get to near the bottom. And you can see I look at 2 different sections of my screen simultaneously. To turn the split off, I can double click back on this line or come back up to split and click it off. Now, while the split is quite useful, even more useful is the freeze panes. Sometimes I want to be able to simply scroll down or scroll across and still be able to see my headings. And you can see at the moment I can't. So I'm going to bring this little scroll bar back up and I'm going to come to freeze panes. If I click the drop down and say freeze top row, it sounds good, but you'll see it's only frozen the top row, which doesn't really help me in this situation. So to turn that off, come back to freeze panes and click unfreeze. Now what I actually want to be able to do is freeze the top 3 rows and my first 3 columns. The trick to this is to click in the cell directly right and directly below the columns and rows I want to freeze. So you can see I'm below row 3 and to the right of column 3. I now come up to freeze panes and I click freeze panes. Some faint black lines have appeared, but you'll notice now when I scroll down, my headings stay fixed, and when I scroll right, my 3 columns on the left also stay fixed. And again, to turn freeze panes off, back to freeze panes and unfreeze. Now the last quick option I want to look at is the option to switch windows. This is useful when you have multiple workbooks open. So let's get another workbook open. We've up to now looked at File Open, but I'm going to press Ctrl O, which is the shortcut, and I'm going to choose W101 VO2 Select and Navigate. We are now looking at a different workbook, but what about if I want to get back to the one I was working in previously? I come to my View tab, I come to Switch Windows, and I now have a list of all my Excel workbooks that are currently open, and I can just click to switch. There's also a useful shortcut key it's Control F6. So I press Control F6 and you can see that quickly switches me between my open windows. So there are some view options to help speed up your workflow and make it easier to work with larger workbooks. Get in there and have a play.